One of the biggest questions that I get is, what lens do you recommend and what lens should I buy? Now, it's a really tough question, and I think rather than giving blanket recommendations, I think it's better to just talk about the different kind of lenses and really inform you to make the choice that best fits the type of photography you do and the style of your photography. So let's just jump right into it. So first, there's really two types of cameras that most people use. You either have a crop sensor camera or you're going to have a full frame camera. If you have a crop sensor camera, you can use full frame lenses on that crop sensor camera, but you can't do it the other way around. You would have to put your full frame camera into crop mode, and in my opinion, you're just really limiting yourself to that. So I think the first thing to think about is, do you plan on getting a full frame body in the future? And if you do, it may be advantageous to think ahead and look at full frame lenses rather than just looking at crop sensor lenses. Now, if you think you're going to stay with crop sensor, photography is a hobby, you're not going to get that deep into it. Crop sensors are great, and the lenses that they have are great. I just think if you're going to make that jump, rather than repurchasing lenses down the road, kind of pre-plan that and not have to spend that money twice. So that would be recommendation number one. So the next thing we need to talk about is what kind of lens you want, or what kind of lens you want to shoot with. Again, there's really two kinds here. So there's going to be zoom lenses and there's going to be prime lenses. So zoom lenses like this lens here, this lens is a Canon 24-105. So what that means is you have a zoom range from 24 millimeters, so fairly wide on a full frame camera, up to 105 millimeters, which is like a medium telephoto lens. The next choice is a prime lens. So this is a Nikon 85 millimeters. So this is a fixed focal length at 85 millimeters, and to zoom with this, you're going to use your feet. You're going to walk in and out. So if you're too wide, you're going to walk closer. If you're too close, you're going to back up. So that's the next choice. Do you want to stick with a fixed focal length, or do you want the flexibility to be able to zoom in and out? Some things that these are really good for is, like, this is a great portrait lens. It gives you a good working distance between you and your subject. Because it's a lower aperture lens, you're able to get that background blur. It's also a really pleasing focal length for portraits. This lens is great for like event photography. So if you don't have the time to be able to change out different lenses, so if you were a prime shooter, maybe you'd want a 35, a 50, and an 85, just so you could cover those different ranges. Now the downside is you have to carry all three of those lenses, and you also have to switch them out as you need them. Whereas this lens, you're going to be able to zoom out to 24 and zoom in all the way to 105. Now this lens has a little bit of drawback from this lens is going to be really good in low light situations. This lens is only an f4, so it's going to be a little bit slower. You're not going to be able to let in as much light as you would with this one. So that's another consideration. Traditionally, prime lenses have been significantly sharper than zoom lenses, so that's always been a knock in the past for zoom lenses. With the new zoom lenses like this 70-200 Sony G Master, I don't know that that's the case anymore. This lens is exceptionally sharp all the way through from 70-200. It's a phenomenal lens. So I don't know that you can necessarily say that it's gonna be a lot sharper. One thing though that the prime lenses do have over their zoom counterparts though is the ability to stop down to those lower f-stop numbers. So if you're a Canon shooter, for example, a lot of their L-series prime lenses go down to f1.2, whereas the majority of high-end zoom lenses only are going down to 2.8. Some Sigma lenses, particularly in their crop sensor sizes, go down to 1.8, but still you're losing a little bit of that light availability from a prime lens. So again, those are two different choices that you'd want to make. The next thing, if you do decide to go with a zoom lens, one important thing that you should consider is getting a lens with a constant aperture. So these two lenses right here, both are constant aperture lenses. This is an f4 and this is an f2.8. And what that means is as you zoom through the different focal lengths that are in the lens, it's going to stay at a constant aperture. So this lens will stay at a f2 regardless if you're at 70 millimeters or all the way up 200 millimeters. So a common lens that you get with your kit lenses are like a 70 to 300. And that lens, the aperture, I think is 3.5 to a like 6.3, I think, something around that range. So what that's doing is when you're zoomed at 70 millimeters, it's going to be an f3.5. But when you get out to 200 millimeters, it's going to be a 6.3, and that's as low as you're going to be able to go. So that's going to really limit your ability to create that background blur and also to let in light. So that's going to make it more difficult in low light situations. So if you decide to go with the zoom lenses, I really recommend that you get a constant aperture lens, and also you save up that little bit extra money and get a faster lens. So either I would say an f4 at minimum, and if you can afford it, the f2.8 variants are significantly better in my opinion. I think that about covers the different types of lenses, the different things you should look out for. As far as recommendations, it seems like the first party lenses, so the Sony lenses, the Nikons, and the Canons, they hold their value better. That's not to say that like Sigma lenses and Tamron lenses aren't great. I honestly really love the Sigma Art Series lens. I recently picked up the 50 millimeter lens, and I'm actually shooting on this right now with the A7 III, and I absolutely love that lens. And I'm going to be buying more, so probably my next lens is going to be either the 135 when it's released, or I may go to the 105. So I want something with a little bit longer focal length. When I was with Nikon, I shot primarily on zoom lenses. So my workhorse lenses were a 24 to 70 and a 70 to 200. Two lenses that I really like for crop sensors are the Sigma Art Series, the 18 to 35, and then the 50 to 150. Those are both f1.8 lenses, so really fast, great for the crop sensor, and cover that entire gamut of that focal range. So essentially you have 18 to 150. So I hope you learned something from this video. I hope I helped answer some of the questions that you might have about lenses. I gave some of my personal recommendations at the end. Again, it really depends on what you shoot and what your goals are. If you're a landscape photographer, you're going to want a wider lens, like a 16 to 35. If you're a portrait photographer, you're probably going to want an 85 and up. If you're an events photographer, maybe you want a really fast zoom lens to be able to capture that entire focal length. I think the 70 to 200 is a incredible lens. It's very expensive, but it's also a really, really good lens. So I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, until next time, take care.